If smoking's so bad for your health, then why does it cure salmon? First thing we need to talk about is selecting a fresh fish. I went to our local market, which is really well known for fresh seafood, and I found a fillet here. And what I looked for was even coloration, no off smells, and just an overall decent moisture level to the surface of the flesh. The moisture level on the meat itself is a really good indicator of how fresh it is and how well it's been taken care of through the process from water to land. Next, we want to check for bones. It's just one of those things that you don't want in your fish, so we're going to run our finger through the top of the fillet here. And I got pretty lucky. They did a pretty good job at the market taking out all the bones. But just give it a double check with your finger. And if you feel any, use a pliers, a tweezers, or whatever you need to get those out. The next step is to get our brine ready. Today we're going to use our lakeside fish cure and brine mix, along with a little bit of apple pie. The brine is going to help us infuse flavors and salt levels before we go into the smokehouse tomorrow. And the apple pie is not for the sweetness, but it's for the cinnamon and nutmeg notes that are going to pair really well with our final smoked product. We're going to use the directions that are right on the container. We're going to use 2 quarts of cold water and 3/4 cup of our brine mix. We're going to whisk that together, and then we'll be ready to go into our brine bag. So I have 2 quarts of cold water measured out. And then I'll measure out 3/4 cup of our brine mix. And just stir that together until it's well dissolved. And now we're going to add a few tablespoons of our apple pie rub. We went with apple pie for this recipe just because it's going to be on our holiday spread and we wanted those warm, wintry tones. But you could really use any flavor choice that you want. Any of our seasonings would pair very well with the smoked salmon. This fish cure and brine mix is a mix of salt and sugar and other flavors, which pairs really well with fish. We today are going to use it in a wet brine form. It can also be used as a dry cure. In that application, we would apply the cure directly on the fish, wrap it up without any liquid. That is a process that takes a little longer. With the wet brine, what we're doing is we're infusing those flavors over a shorter period of time. That way we can be ready to smoke this fish tomorrow. This blend can also be used for something like Gravlox. Gravlox is a process that is cured without smoking and takes a few days longer than what we're doing. We do have a video on that if you want to check out our YouTube channel. Now, another benefit of this cure blend is that you don't have to boil it before, so you can start right with your cold water and not worry about heating up your product. We have a large brine bag here. I'm going to set the fish in the brine bag, and then I'm going to pour the brine into the bag. I'm going to try and get as much air out as possible so that the liquid is tight on the fish for proper curing. Then I'll seal it up, and we're going to go in the fridge for about 16-18 hours before we smoke tomorrow. Take the fish, and I'm going to try and lay this as flat as possible so that the water and the brine gets all around the fish. Very carefully pour this in here. Don't make a mess. Now again, for this one side of salmon, I used a 2-quart batch of brine. And it looks like we might even be able to fit another side of salmon in here if that's what we were doing. But we're just going to start with the one. And obviously we want a really good seal on this bag so we don't have any messes in the fridge overnight. You can use other containers for brining as long as they are non-metallic. Glass and plastic are ideal, but if you use metal, the sugar and salts in the brine will leach the metal into your product, which creates a food safety issue. Again, our fish is really well submerged in the brine, so we're ready to set this in the fridge, and we'll come back tomorrow for smoking. After I rinsed the brine off, I took some paper towel and I patted our fish dry. Again, any moisture on the surface is going to hinder any smoke absorption. And now I'm going to season our fish with just a little bit of apple pie rub. We want just a real light coating on there because a little later during the smoking process we're going to add some maple syrup to glaze this. I have our smoker set up at 120 degrees and I'm going to put the smoke on right away, and this is going to go for about an hour, maybe 2 hours for the first stage of our smoke schedule. This is a drying sequence, which is going to pull some of the moisture out of the fish and really get some of that smoke flavors into the meat. Before setting the salmon in the smoker, I set it in the fridge for about 2 to 3 hours. I want to dry the fish out a little bit because any moisture could hinder the smoke absorption. I then set it in a preheated 120-degree smoker. I ran that stage for 2 hours, at which point I raised the temperature to 140 degrees and let it go for another hour. Then I once again raised the temperature of the smokehouse to 170 degrees, at which time I started basting the fish with maple syrup. About every hour. I let it cook at 170 until we reached an internal temperature of 140 degrees, which was about 2 to 3 hours. You want to gradually raise the temperature of the smokehouse so we don't shock the fish and cause moisture loss. Then, I let the fish rest at room temperature for about 30 minutes and then refrigerated it until it came down to an internal temperature of 40 degrees. And here we have our final product. We got a really nice sheen from the glaze we put on. You can definitely get the smoke just in the air. It smells delicious. We paired it with a few of the classics. Some red onions, some breads, cream cheese, capers. And this is really going to impress all of your holiday guests. So I'm really happy with this product. The flake turned out really nice. The brine, I think, made a huge difference in increasing the salt level and the overall flavor. That combined with the smoke flavors from our PK100 really topped off this holiday dish. For our lakeside fish cure and brine mix in our PK100, head to psseasoning.com or you can click on the links below to direct you to the website. Until next time, I'm Chef Jed. Thanks for watching.